From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming out on a lovely, lovely day in DC. I'm Rob Casper. Thanks to Marianne and to Diana Ingraham and everyone here at the Hill Center staff for this wonderful series. We couldn't be happier that they host us here. Ron reminded us that this is our 15th event. And it's gotten to the point where I feel like we have all the various rituals that we have, including, me getting up on the stage and maybe we'll actually even have a stretch at some point. For those of you who've been here a lot, you're used to it. Ron's an amazing guy. What Ron does with our poets
Move it along,
just
Ron.
blows my mind. And I'm not even going to say anything more because he won't. Let me tell you a little bit about the Poetry and Literature Center here at the Library of Congress. We are home to the Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry. We also put on all sorts of programs throughout the year. We have two great programs coming up. On the 20th of April, we have our Bobbitt Prize reading with two prize winners this year, Claudia Rankin and who's the other one? Nate Mackey. They'll make a fabulous pair. And on the 26th, our Poet Laureate, Juan Felipe Herrera, is giving his final event. That includes all sorts of stuff that I can't tell you about until it's announced tomorrow. If you want to find out more about our programs, you can visit our website, www.lsc.gov/poetry. I also just wanted to mention, you all see this here, it's a little survey. You should have it. If you don't mind filling it out after the event, letting us know about how we did, that would be terrific. And now I want to introduce Dana Levin to conclude our 2016-2017 series. Dana grew up in California's Mojave Desert and earned a BA from Pitzer College and an MA from New York University. Her four collections of poetry include In the Surgical Theater, Wedding Day, Sky Burial, and Banana Palace, which was published last year at Copper Canyon Press. And thanks to Copper Canyon and Kelly Forsythe for making that happen. Selecting Levin's manuscript for the American Poetry Review, Hahnemann First Book Prize, Louise Glick praised the work as, quote, sensuous, compassionate, violent, extravagant. In the Surgical Theater, also won the John C. Zacharias First Book Award from Plowshares and the Penn Osterwheel Award. And in 2014, Glick, then the U.S. Poet Laureate, selected Dana Levin for Whittier Fellowship from the Library of Congress. Levin's many other honors include fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Roman Jaffe Foundation, and the Whiting Foundation, among others. She has previously taught at the University of New Mexico, Santa Fe University of Art and Design, and the College of Santa Fe. She currently serves as Distinguished Writer in Residence at Maryville University, and she just moved, or is about to move, to Ron's hometown, St. Louis, Missouri. So please join me in welcoming Dana Levin.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
We discovered we have three things in common already. We both love poetry, we both worked in St. Louis, and we're both Buffy the Vampire fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Not the weirdest coincidence.
No.
When I first came to the Post in 2005, one of my jobs was to edit a column we used to have called The Poet's Choice, much beloved column. And Robert Pinsky was the poet, and one of his columns, this was the first few months that I was here, one of his poems was explaining what an image is. He wrote, images can be satisfactorily clear in one way and excitingly inexplicable in another. Here's an example, he said. And then he published one of your poems. It was probably the first poem of yours I read.
Wow.
Yeah. 6 monarch butterfly cocoons clinging to the back of your throat. Could you read the rest of that, or the whole poem for us?
Sure. Ars Poetica. 6 monarch butterfly cocoons clinging to the back of your throat. You could feel their gold wings trembling. You were alarmed. You felt infested. In the downstairs bathroom of the family home, gagging to spit them out. And a voice saying, don't.
Now, for Pinsky, that was an example of an image that makes you feel something that you wouldn't feel through any kind of literal description. Talk about how an image works for you, what an image does for you.
I would say an image is a portal for realization and discovery. So I have always had what I call image fascination.
Yes.
Whether I'm looking at art or seeing something in the world or something that comes into my inner eye. My dreams are very visual. I pay a lot of attention to these images. And especially in my early life as a poet, the poems almost always began with an image that I couldn't get out of my head. And oftentimes the act of writing the poem was, why can't I not get this image out of my head?
Right.
And so in entering the image just sort of became a constellation usually of all sorts of material. And there's a psychotherapeutic idea that the symbol is the most economic way to communicate very complicated, contradictory constellations of information. So, which is something I believe.
Yeah, and do.
Yeah,
Yes.
or try.
There are images that make us see something literal much more clearly,
Yes.
but that's not what that image was.
No, actually sometimes when the image unfolds, it's more mysterious than it even was before.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it gives you a feeling that no literal explanation could invoke in you.
Yes.
When I was teaching English and poetry, I would have students, and maybe you do too, although your students are probably older, and they would say, well, why doesn't the poet just say what she wants to say? Why encode it and then make us uncode it?
Yeah.
You ever hear that?
Yeah.
You make a sarcastic crack in one of your poems. You say, we are getting such lovely flourishes from our poets. What's your answer to that student?
Gosh. Well, first I would probably say the world is complicated. The world is not easily understandable.
Well, why make it worse with poetry then?
Well, because of that experience of, having the experience of discovery, which means you have to wade through things. Now, not everybody has tolerance. Well, everybody has a different level of tolerance for how much time they want to spend wading through information, or not information, and let's say an image.
Yes.
And poetry, one of the reasons why it's such a subversive art form is that it has the capacity to really ask you to just slow down.
Yes.
And be with your discomfort and your uncertainty and your not knowing and your confusion. And one of the things I always tell my students is, I got this from the critic Helen Vendler, who said, instead of reading a poem and saying, what does this poem mean? It's better for the first question to be either, how does this poem make me feel, or how does the speaker of the poem seem to feel? Mm-hmm. And I think that 80 to 90% of the time, you can tell what the feeling is, even if you are not quite certain what the narrative sense is, or the intent is, or that kind of stuff.
And you may never get that.
You may never get it.
In one of your poems, you write, I would be disingenuous if I said being understood were not important to me. Between the ceiling of private dream and the floor of public speech, between the coin and the hand it crosses, mercantilists and governors and preachers alike, the imagination and its products so often rebuff purpose, and some of us don't like it, and want it to make it mean, I would never shoot you, even if you were the only meat around. I love it because it so demonstrates what you're doing. I'm with you, right? That top line is totally explicit. I know exactly what you mean. And then by the end, you have this surprising, witty metaphor that is arresting and surprising and funny.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
About that poem.
Yeah.
So actually, this poem came out of, I have a long correspondence with a poet named G.C. Waldrop. And well, I'm somebody who hoards scraps and failed poems and journal entries, and I'm constantly going back into that material and seeing if I can smash it together and make something happen with it. And with this poem, I just started to like how I sounded when I was writing to GC, because it seemed like language that didn't often make it into my poems.
Yes.
So I actually took about 25 pages of our correspondence, and I just started to highlight anything that didn't sound like how I usually sound.
Yes.
And then I whittled it down to 10 pages, and then I whittled it down to 3 pages, and then... So these are all things I said to GC.
Excellent. And how important is it to you, really, to be understood?
It's, well, it's going to sound ridiculous. This is probably the torture of all poets. It's deeply important to me. You know?
Because you are, and I say this with complete respect, you are a difficult poet.
So my mother would agree.
You're worth it. You're totally worth it.
Oh, thank you.
But it's not two roads, diverged in a wood.
No, I mean, yeah, and it's actually a current despair at midlife. It is, where you're like, what am I doing? Shouldn't I just say it? But what I tell my students, I keep going back to this because I feel like this is where I articulate my thought that I don't even know I think. But I tell my students that you have to determine what your relationship is to a reader. And for myself, it's poem by poem. So there's certain poems where I'll just love a weirdness that's developing or a turn of phrase that's developing, and I know that somebody else may not necessarily understand or get what I see in it.
Yes.
But because of the tactile quality of the language or the image, I just want to preserve it. And so then I'm just like, the reader can figure it out. And then there's other poems where it's really important to me to be clear as I can. I have no idea if I'm successful at those moments of clarity or
Right.
not. But and I love mystery and I love puzzles,
Mm-hmm.
and I love being disturbed by something and not knowing why I'm disturbed. And so that quality, I think, comes back into the poems. And I guess a reader of my work will either like being in that state or
Right.
will be like, I'm throwing this book across the room.
I'm sure that does not happen often. There's a poem you've written called Glass Heart,
Oh,
which is a poem about teaching poetry.
yes.
Could you
I haven't
that
read
for
this
us?
poem in maybe 15 years.
Are there any words you can't pronounce?
No. Who knows? We're going to find out. Tell me if I'm laughing too loud. And this poem ended up, there's stuff about my grandparents that came into this poem that I didn't expect.
It's surprising as a reader when you
Yeah.
hit it.
Okay, Glass Heart. Could the West creep into your idea of happiness? Abundance which gave no comfort, in which your loneliness was spared? The student wrote, she wipes tears from her heart. Forgotten on the kitchen table, glassy, beaded with sweat. The line is too sentimental, said the teacher, unless I see it literally, taking a sponge to the anatomical heart, wiping and wiping the tears off it. Glass heart, so transparent, the tears drove around its autobahn. Then the kids came home and found it pulsing there, like in a washing machine. You could see the grief go round and round. The student wrote, sucking tears out of her aorta with a straw. A bitterness so pronounced it was a kind of ammonia, a world in which one could lose one's parents and be put on a train alone. Her grandfather had owned a little store for years. They can shoot out the windows, he would say, wagging a finger, as long as they don't set the street on fire. Glass heart, so transparent. Was it their mothers, their fathers? It lay weeping in the heat, but they had to leave to help deliver groceries. The student wrote, in my left, my heart, my right, my bone, beating my heart like a bloody drum. Ovens, the grandfather muttered. In Russia, they ate us raw. So transparent. Meal after meal, no one claimed it. After a while, no one saw it, though it ticked at the center of the table like a clock. Singing, oh, this sack of water, swaying on its hook of bone.
That makes me want to teach poetry again. Because what the poem does so brilliantly and wittily is demonstrate you teaching poetry while teaching us poetry. You move from the students' flat, cliche, bland images to your own arresting, surprising images, moving back and forth. It's a little more clear when you read it yourself. Parts are in italics and it's set off, but I think you read it in a way that we could follow it too.
Oh, good.
Yes. Too sentimental unless I see it literally. How does that guide your work generally?
Well, you know, for myself, like for instance, I remember auditing a class with Charles Simic when I was in my 20s, and he went off on how the moon was a dead symbol, and I was insulted. I was 22, I wanted to write about the moon. You know, how can the moon be a dead symbol? But I think what he was trying to say was that, you know, how many poems have had the moon in it? And, you know, and later it made me, as I was like reading actually a lot of haiku, I was thinking about the haiku masters and how, for them, the classic haiku masters like Basho and Issa, their mastery was displayed by how well they worked variations of tropes. Like if you were going to write a haiku about autumn, you had to have the harvest moon in it, or you had to have cider in it, or, you know, these things called kigo. Mm-hmm. And this idea about variation rather than originality, the West is very focused on, I'm going to invent something out of nothing.
Yes.
Which, of course, doesn't ever happen.
Gets harder and harder.
Well, you know, I don't think anything is sourceless. So the haiku masters were really interesting to read about in terms of that it wasn't about, that the originality was inside variation. So I feel like I'm going around, this is what usually happens to me. If I want to write a poem about the moon and I'm trying to avoid all of the cliches about the moon, or if I want to write about the heart,
right.
This is even better,
Yes.
and I want to avoid all the cliches about the heart. Well, most of the cliches about the heart have to do with sentimentality or kind of maudlin feeling or cutesy,
Yes.
or so for me, the best way to bypass that was to actually look at the anatomy of a heart.
Right.
I actually got Gray's Anatomy when I was in grad school. I wanted to actually look at the heart, and could I bring that language, that anatomical language, back into the image of a heart and somehow renew it for myself, and also do other weird things to it, like a glass heart that has an Autobahn inside it.
Yes.
Well, you know, if you think about blood cells, you know,
Right.
blood cells moving through,
Or
and
put it in a washing machine.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Yes.
Don't you want to put your heart in the washing machine?
There's
There's many of us who would benefit.
Does it work with the students? Do they see that? Can they hear that? How startling that is compared to their own bland work?
In defense of my students, I've had really amazing students in my time. I don't think talent is a rare commodity. I think discipline is a rare commodity, and vocation is just something that happens. But I think talent's everywhere. Yeah, with some students, yes, but sometimes you have to trick them. Like you have to trick them into discovering their own idiosyncratic vividness, and that's where exercises, assignments, and stuff can be really helpful to get them to have to skirt around what they think a poem is,
Right.
or what they think a poem can do.
We have so much language on the shelf just waiting to be brought down again,
Absolutely.
like last week's shirts and worn again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should read a poem about poetry. You write really good poems about poetry.
Thank you. When this book came out, some people were unhappy that there
Really?
weren't poems about poetry. Well,
Yeah.
it was kind of fashionable to write poems about poetry during
Well,
the
I've read a
time.
lot of them, and I think yours are really exceptional. I can't pronounce this title.
Quelque chose.
What does that mean?
It's French for something. It's kind
Well,
of
that's
like...
not very helpful at all.
Well, it kind of, it's, if anybody here speaks French, please correct me if I am incorrect. It's kind of like a French version of whatever, sort
Okay.
of. Is that
Okay.
correct? Yes. Excellent. Okay. I think there's also a cuss word in here.
There are some.
Okay.
Yes. It's
I
okay. We're
cuss
all
in
adults
poems.
here.
The entire field of language is available. Okay. Quelque chose. You want to get in and then get out of the box. Form, breakage, form. I was at the fish shop wondering why being experimental means not having a point, why experimentation in form is sufficient unto itself. Is it? But I needed a new way to say things, sad, tired eye with its dulled violations, lyric with loss in its faculty den. Others were just throwing a veil over suffering, glittery, interesting, I don't exist. All over town, I marched around, ranting my Jeremiad, thinking, what good is form if it doesn't say anything? And by say, I meant wake somebody up. Even here at the shores of Lake Champlain, mothers were wrenching small arms out of sockets. Not just the mothers. What were the fathers doing, wrenching small arms out of bedside caches? How could I disappear into language when children were being called fuckers by their mothers, who were being called cunts by their boyfriends, who were being called dickheads behind their backs? It wasn't that I was a liberal Democrat, it was that bodies had been divested of their souls, like poems, trying to get in or out of the box. And the scallop said, nulle idée que dans les choses. And I said, I'll have the captain special with wedges instead of fries. And everywhere in the fish shop, the argument raged, its Baroque proportions, the conflict between harmony and invention. But then a brilliance, the movement of her gloved hands as she laid the haddock out one by one, the sheer transparency of her latex fingers in and out of the lit display case as if they were, yes, fish. Laying haddock out in a plastic tub on a bed of ice, her lank brown hair pulled back from her face with a band. Yes, it was true she had to do this for the market, but there was such beauty in it. She was the idea called tenderness. She was a girl who stood under fluorescent lights making $6 an hour. And she looked up at me and held out a haddock with both her hands, saying it was the best of the morning's catch. Nulle idée que dans les choses is a French version of No Ideas But in Things, which we get from William Carlos Williams. And this was my poem against Derrida. But I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah.
Now I've told you.
It does seem like a pretty
My
broad
cousin will appreciate it.
attack on the blandness of modern poetry.
Well, yeah, or just the idea that this book was written at a moment when poetry world was very enamored of what we now call the elliptical poem. It seems so dated now, actually. The world has moved in such interesting ways. But after 50 years of the hegemony of the confessional poem and plain style confessional poetry, suddenly people remembered about the tactility of language, which was exciting, and ideas about post-structural philosophy started to come in and mess up people's minds. There is no author, text, speak to other text, blah, blah, blah. So I found this poetry, a lot of the time, the surfaces were gorgeous and fascinating, and they were empty.
They didn't wake anyone up, as
They
you
didn't
say.
wake anyone up. So that poem was a direct response, and all the French is in there because I was mad at Derrida.
I see that. I can see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you say, how can you write poems like that that are just experimental, that are just clever, that are fascinating,
Yeah.
when so many people around you are physically suffering?
Yes. Today, that poetry will go nowhere because we're in a different moment.
Mhm.
It's very interesting to be alive for a while and see this stuff
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Let's talk about the body and the soul. Many of your poems explore these profound and ancient questions between the material body, which you call throughout your books meat, and
We're all inside.
the soul, that cramped dark thing in the body, bitten and chained. In another poem you write, mind's an accident of bio-wiring. That's one line of thinking. We're animals that shit out consciousness. That's another. There's frequently an impatience to be disembodied in your poetry. You write in one, who will help me avoid my meat suit? Your latest book opens with the ironic lines, we used our texting machines to look up the definition of soul.
Yeah.
You didn't find it there?
We found a definition.
Found some definition.
It's all theoretical.
Yeah. Your first book begins with a really weird poem, Lenin's Bath.
Yes.
That was a daring choice. You have the right one? Yeah. I'd also like to know why you opened with that poem.
Oh, I felt
So
like...
here you are, nobody knows who you are. You're publishing your first book, and you open with this poem.
I think it's because it just set the terms for the book.
Yeah, I think it sets the terms for your whole career.
Yeah, the body.
You couldn't have known that then.
I didn't, no. So this poem, it's called Lenin's Bath, and it came out of, this book was published in 1999, but a lot of the poems were written between the late 80s, like early 90s, and the wall had just barely come down. So all these things were happening in the former Soviet Union, like, what do we do with Lenin's body? That's been embalmed forever and is like in this mausoleum. And there was some article in the New York Times that talked about the doctor whose job it was to care for Lenin's body. And it was pretty fascinating to me that they had kept this body going for, I don't know.
Decades.
Yeah.
In really good shape.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my God.
They'd spent so much money on it.
Poor Lenin. Yeah, poor sad Lenin. And there was a quote in the article, "The future of the body, that's a purely political question," which I found fascinating at the time because,
Yeah.
no, at least not this body. So it's called Lenin's Bath. The assistants lift him gently, gently. For a moment, the one lifting under his arms is in the attitude of an artistic sorrow. It is the deposition, the taking down of the god. But then one of them wraps his limp body around him like a coat, marches around to the laughter, saying, "Comrades, comrades." He is dead. He is so dead, he is nothing. He is a cloth to tend. When Debov walks in, disheveled, yawning, the assistants are all business, filling the vat with the secret fluid that makes him supple, that makes him clean. They are so tender, lowering him into the tub. Their gloved hands come away, fleshy pink. When they've gone, Debov sits watching. He imagines the sheath of bacteria he knows is there, incessant, biological, seeking a way in. They push and gather at every pore, but the flesh is sealed, his doing. Soaking in his vat of embalming fluid, Lenin looks restful, meditative, a high official in his bath, in his dacha, far away from the controlled air of the mausoleum, the school children filing past him unblinking, the veterans who stand expressionless. Debov watches as the germs crawl up and down the length of the body, scouring, sniffing for that open hole. The cold windows in the laboratory condense with his breath, and the flies lie hungry in the snow.
It works so well because it raises this issue about what is the body and how does it relate to identity in a very macabre and comic way in this poem. In other poems, it's very serious.
Yes.
Why is that such a compelling issue for you?
I've never felt at home in my body. My body has been a source of difficulty for me, both physically and aesthetically. And women, we have this issue. We never look like what the magazines tell us we should look like. That kind of stuff. But I think also when I was born, my mother was actually the first woman in California to have amniocentesis. So actually, she was in like one of those operating theaters where all those people were like watching. So even then, in the womb, I was like, anyway, it's something called RH factor. So her body was treating me like a invader. So they had to induce labor. I was born at 8 months. I weighed 4 pounds. I immediately started to die. They didn't know exactly what it was, but they knew it was one of my vital organs. So they basically just opened me up from sternum to pelvis, and they took out part of my intestine, and I had a colostomy bag for the first 2 years of my life, and I was in an incubator for 2 months, for the first 2 months of my life. And I've got these scars all over my stomach still, and I've got scars in my ankles from where they fed me. They put a feeding tube in my ankles. Mm-hmm. And my nails and my teeth are screwed up because of how many antibiotics they gave me when I was that little. And so, and then later in life, you know, just discovering that like certain posture issues, like muscular skeletal issues, actually stem from that because of how deep they cut in, and just so the body has been difficult, and also a story. Like when I was a kid, and I'd be like, you know, my parents would tell me the story of what happened to me, and it was like hearing a heroic tale about someone else.
Yes.
Because I wasn't expected to
like
live.
You, but not you.
Yeah, exactly.
In the way our bodies are us, but not us.
Yeah. And, you know, you just realize incarnation is probably the most heroic thing any of us can accomplish. Because it is really hard in here, wouldn't you agree? And so I think that there's also a disassociative quality to my personality that maybe comes from some of that too, where the spirit really wants to get as far away from this as possible. And then I tell my students, I said the beginning of art and religion is the first time Og found Oog dead on the ground and went, Oog, like wake up, and there's no Oog in there, and Og is like, wow, where'd he go? Because there's his body,
right.
But whatever he was is not in there. Yeah, that's it. That's the beginning.
Paul, Roosevelt Island.
Yeah.
This is what I meant by one of the darker, it's not comic poems about this problem of the body and the identity.
Yeah, so when I was in grad school at NYU, Sharon Olds had started an amazing program at Goldwater Hospital on Roosevelt Island. And Goldwater Hospital, if my memory is serving me correctly, was a either city-run or state-run like nursing home. So the people that were there didn't have, I don't think they had money. There were all sorts of people there who were had all sorts of problems with their body, from, you know, ODs that had gone wrong and messed somebody up to people with really debilitating degenerative diseases. So she started this writing program for the patients at Goldwater, and the grad students at NYU had an opportunity to work with them. And there was a workshop. Some of them couldn't speak. Some of them were using letterboards. Some of them were just present. And you couldn't necessarily even tell if they were participating or not, but they were there. And then you would sometimes come on different days to transcribe. And Paul Rousseau, he spelled his name like the French philosopher, but then a nurse later told me his last name was really Russo. Yeah. He was, I don't know what his I don't know what his diagnosis was, but he was in a wheelchair and he could not hold a pen, but he wrote reams and reams of poems. I mean, I went into his room at the hospital and there were just drawers full of poems. And I helped him as best I could for the time that I was there, and they were good poems. And I remember one time just hanging out with him eating Easter candy, you know? And so anyway, this is Paul, Roosevelt Island. The broken teeth, the ulcers, eating into the backs of people who have spent years sitting in chairs in the green-tiled halls of a hospital, trying to find a place to read, to think, to find, like Faye, a place to turn one's back and cry, to say, like Faye, when I cry, I know it is Jesus crying, because Jesus is in my chest. He's crying for me, for my cut-off legs. He's crying for you, Paul, your feet bent like his, your bones stuck like nails through the flesh of your body, pinning you to a wheelchair for 23 years, your hands shaped like claws, skin hard, tremoring, your shirt covered with egg yolk and coffee, your green pants stained with pus and shit, and the doctors gliding by you like sails, saying, hello, hello, as you open the stink of your plaque-caked mouth and say, hello, you are beautiful, your soft eyes, your old man smell, the way you stick out your clawed hand to shake mine and say thank you, popping chocolate in your mouth when we shared Easter candy, the dull brown saliva falling in torrents because you couldn't stop talking about poetry. Paul, I see you in a wheelchair on the weed-strewn, windswept east side of the island, the Pepsi sign curling over the banks of Queens, the clouds rolling black in from the Hudson, and you are saying, yes, now, I am giving myself up to the wind. I am a kite, I am a bird, I am weightless and beyond gravity, slipping up and diffusing, the million captive particles of me falling like mist over the hospital, because I am holy mind, holy air. I am dropping these wrecked bone shackles. Thank you. I should write my first book again.
We're all eventually Paul.
Mm.
We all eventually want to get out of our ruined bodies by the end.
We do. I have a lot to say about what we do with our elderly and dying in this country.
Yeah. I am holy mind, he says in the end. Holy air. I'm dropping these wrecked bone shackles. That's an ancient idea. Before Christianity, of course, adopted this, Paul was very much into that idea, but it started before him, right? This idea that the spirit and the mind, the body and the identity were somehow at odds with one another and would eventually be separated again.
Yeah. It's tough because sometimes I feel like they took it way too far, the Judeo-Christians, in terms of like, the body's evil. You should just be focusing on your spirit. But we have to figure out how to be in here. I mean, we have to figure out how to do this. Or
Right.
else I don't think it's about not doing this. You know, I think it's about how do I have a mind and how do I have a body?
Right. You ask in one of your poems, do you think this is repulsive? You're sort of daring us. Yeah. In another poem about being drawn to a movie theater, although it's obviously about much more, you speak of the great relief of just not being in the world, of just being able to watch. The lights go off and you're not you anymore. You're just, as you say, to give up the burden a while, to be an I, perceiver, God of the kingdom, to have that Emersonian moment.
Yeah.
Where you're just the eye, the transparent eyeball.
Yeah. For a long time, that was my biggest goal in life.
Just to be the transparent eyeball?
Yeah, but it wasn't going to work.
To have that disembodied perspective. In another poem you write, and the poet says, you may not admit to bone or flesh. You must not have nerves in the tip of your fingers. You may say fist, you may say teeth, but you may not put them in the same sentence together. You must not put them in the body together. You're obviously mocking that idea in a way.
Yes.
The opening poem of Banana Palace, your latest book, contains these lines. We had a dream that we could smash the bands of matter and time and still be alive. Was that the soul wishing we would invent the body out of existence? So many of us now enthralled by doom. Let's stand up, turn around, and sit back down.
Yeah. I'm turning around.
Not an intermission. Just sit down.
Can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Well, Rob says you're having trouble hearing me. Maybe I'm
Oh.
not speaking up enough. Dmitri.
Itzhakov.
Itzhakov?
Yeah.
That is a funny poem. What a weird guy.
Oh, yeah.
This is another real person you read about in the newspaper,
yeah.
right?
Actually, that poem is a big faker because all of the lines were stolen from articles in the New York Times and the Huffington Post, except for lines 4 through 6.
That's not a faker. That's amazing. That is amazing. Wait till you hear this poem. this strange young man wants to basically translate himself into a machine.
Yes. He's a billionaire. He's a Russian billionaire. He's spending all of his money trying to figure out how to download consciousness into mechanical bodies.
So he's it's sort of a non-religious pursuit of this Pauline idea.
Well, he's interesting to read about. He says it's the cure for hunger. It's the cure for so many of our ills, and I can intellectually understand.
Yes.
But I think there is a great spiritual purpose to being incarnated, and we're just endlessly trying to figure out ways not to have it, not to have to do it. And this is, so anyway, Dmitry Itzkov, Cento, or is it Cento? Cento, thanks. A cento is a poem form where you take lines from others and build a poem. So I took lines from an article in the Huffington Post and an article in the New York Times, and I reorganized them and lightly edited them, and then the lines that I wrote are at the eye level. This is like a cyborg poem. Anyway. Dmitry Itzkov, a cento. Dmitry Itzkov, 32, has a colossal dream, an early start for his own mechanical face. He's one of the men with brains, wondering how to evade the death of meat, he thinks. By 2045, we'll have substance-independent minds, then no need for biology at all. At 25, he started to have the symptoms of a midlife crisis. The musical instruments unlearned, the books unread. The more he contemplated the world, the more broken it seemed. What we're doing here does not look like the behavior of grown-ups, killing the planet and killing ourselves. Decoupling the mind from the needy human body could pave the way for a more sublime human spirit. It could allow paralyzed people to communicate or control a robotic arm or a wheelchair. It could allow you to start your car if you think, start my car. Within a century, we'll frequent body service shops, choose our bodies from a catalog, then transfer our consciousness to one better suited for life on Mars. From the very beginning, he said, we realized Dmitry was not an ordinary person. He leads a life that could best be described as monastic. No meat, fish, coffee, alcohol, or cold water. Meat gives him an energy he's not comfortable with. What is the brain? What is consciousness? It contains plenty of terrifying brink of extinction plot twists. It's somewhere between a cell phone call and teleportation. It's speaking with his voice in real time. Get right up close to Dmitry Itzkov and sniff all you like. He has the kind of generically handsome face and perfect smile that seem computer-generated, complete with all the particulars of consciousness and personality. Yes, we have seen this movie, and yes, it always leads to robots enslaving humanity. For now, just acquiring a lifelike robotic head is a splurge. Somebody, HuffPo or New York Times wrote that.
To evade the death of meat. Oh, that's pretty much...
I wrote that one.
That's the ideal of almost all the religions on Earth.
Yes.
Another poem, you have the line, you believe in skin, which has such a great double meaning. You believe that skin exists, and we believe in our skins.
Mm-hmm.
Our belief takes place in skin.
Yes.
Sky Barrel ends with a poem about a weird farm.
It's a real place.
I saw the footnote and went back and read the article in the Times.
Yeah.
This is a farm where they study forensics by letting actual bodies rot in the fields. They take pictures of them and they study how they decompose over time, so that they can solve murders where they find bodies that have been decomposing over time. And you decided to write a poem about it. I won't even go into what that means.
My perfect scenario. I read the same article. Yeah, it's called The Body Farm. It's the graduate school for forensic anthropology at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I have to say, when you read the article, the guy who runs it is a weird dude.
Oh, very.
Where or the writer like made him a weird, like this kind
He's
of
weird.
strange
He's weird.
artist of death. I don't know. He's anyway.
He's wandering around actual rotting bodies and saying things like, "It's beautiful to me."
Yeah. Look
That's
at the
weird.
honeybees. Yeah, I was into it. So this poem is called Spring. You should imagine that you are a graduate student in this program and you are going to do homework. The sun in shafts and spades. Through the pine and birches, little breeze setting off the leaves. Their golden green increase. Pollen to the air, its colonial dream of a new imperium of trees. Snap against the wrist skin. And then you press down on the tongue with your gloved thumb to let the honeybee show you the way. The dark tunnel paths from light to light. Flay the face and scoop out the eyes. You'll see. Bees in a cloud round your hand. Egg herder, your smell synonymous with treasure. Shining a light at the back of the throat. Blowflies in liquid pearls the bees murder to eat. And all at the lips and nose a yellow dust. Pollen they have delivered. You scrape it into a little sack. Ripple and snap. Bend to the O of the rigored mouth. Listen. Plastic bags like souls caught in trees. What to harvest from the sloughed off suits of the dead? Like seashells cupping the ghost tongue of the sea, their black mouths speak. You crouch to the hum with a bag and a blade. You, the god, it sways.
The line from your first poem in your first book to what is almost the last poem in that book. People caring for bodies, one body being preserved at tremendous expense and almost insane effort, and then these bodies being left purposely to rot in the open.
Yes.
Makes us think about what we really are physically.
Yes.
And where the we resides.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. When I was working on Banana Palace, the book that Dmitry Itzkov is from, I was like, oh, finally, I'm writing about technology, and I'm writing about end times, and I'm writing about anxiety about the future, and then really late in the game, I was like, oh my God, I'm still writing about the body. I'm still writing about the body.
Right.
I think I'll probably always write
Yes.
about the body.
I want to talk about angels, because they have bodies, but they're also immaterial.
Yes.
So they're a weird answer to the paradox in your poems. There's one called The Nurse. If you'd read that poem.
Sure. To tell you the truth, I don't even know where this idea and image came from.
It's kind of comforting and lovely to imagine that the operating room is filled with angels.
Yeah, but okay. The nurse. There are so many now perched on the headboard, opening and closing their wings like moths. The kidney is failing, and so many are arriving, alighting on the blanket, the pillow, falling around the comatose patient, settling in drifts against the paper gown. You've been seeing this. You've been watching them gather. You've told no one how the buzzing keeps growing around the bed. Now they crowd like a sea around the body, listing and pushing, the pulse of their wings lifting the current. You can feel it, the wind, on the hairs of your arms, making the lamp sway, ruffling the chart at the foot of the bed. They are hanging from tubes, perched on the monitor, pressing and pressing with a rising hum. You can hear it, the whirring, the din of their waiting, as they rustle and jostle and launch with a roar of angels swarming over the body, burrowing head first into every pore.
Not that comforting. Yeah, I heard an angel buzz when I died.
Yeah.
And later in the book, you reject the idea of angels in a very interesting way. It's called banishing the angels.
Yeah.
It's like you considered angels as an answer to this problem, and then you realized angels are not the answer.
Yeah, well, I was writing a lot of this book while living in New York City, and if anything is going to make you realize the incontrovertible fact of bodies, it's living in New York City.
The presence of everyone. It's
Yeah.
such a crowd.
And that there's beauty and amazingness there.
Yes.
Banishing the angels. And then the cloud passed, and a light came rushing down the steps of the subway and blazed up against the phone booth standing in the corner. And inside it was a girl talking on the phone, all lit up amid the grime of the subway. And when I saw her, I wanted her to be an angel. I wanted her with wings inside the station to say, "The angel on the phone," and see it softly beating, old newspapers at its feet, and no one noticing, white and gold in the dirty glass, blazing religious in the piss and exhaust, an oddity bright in the life of the phone booth, an angel in a box in the filtered sun, where I was straining to look back at the light rushing down, at the girl who was not an angel talking on the phone, in the real light of the unmystical sun, thinking, the girl who is not an angel is something to believe, the phone booth in the sunlight, something to believe.
So that's your answer, is to reject all that metaphysical abstraction and goo and just say, this is the world. This physical world is what we have, and we have to love and appreciate.
Yes. This is why somebody like Dmitry Itzkov, I'm just like, this is what you want to do with your billions?
Yeah.
This is it. Or anybody that's trying to figure out how to extend our lifespan or make us immortal. What a waste of resources. We're not supposed to be here for a long time. I don't think.
And there's beauty in what we have, in what we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really, I love the way the poem moves too, so quickly like that. I want to talk about, we are winding down. I want to talk about a larger kind of death that you approach in this poem called Banana Palace. It's a long poem.
Yes.
But we are near the end here.
Okay, so should I give background?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever we would need.
There's a lot in this book that is addressing our world of social media, which is really only 10 years old. Shocking to recall. I don't even think we understand what it's doing to us. Many gifts, many not gifts. So I was trawling through Facebook one day, and then all of a sudden, what is that? And I saw this image, and I just was like, what is that? And it made me stop. And I looked at it, and it was beautiful. And then I saw what it was. And I really wanted to write about this image, but I didn't know how to write about it without writing about Facebook, which just seemed a very dismal subject. Hi, Facebook streaming. It just seemed like a really, really dismal subject for poetry. So I let it go for a year, and then I was like, oh, I really want to write about this image. But apparently, how can I write about its effect on me if I don't write about the way that it popped up out of the narcotic of just kind of going like this, And then I was like, all right, how are you going to do this? Why would you write about Facebook? To tell people about it. Well, who doesn't know about it? Well, obviously somebody who was born after the collapse of civilization and had no sense of where we are. So once I hit upon that, I was able to write this poem. So the speaker of the poem is somebody who has lived in our time and has also gone through what we might call apocalypse, survivable, and is now on the other side and is trying to describe to somebody who has never lived in our world about this image and about Facebook. And at the end of the poem, it will reveal what this image was. The very first part of this poem, the speaker is both me and this figure, this made-up figure of apocalypse survivor, but then pretty soon it's just the survivor. Okay.
Which could be you someday.
I don't know. As I have said many times, I think my only hope is if you decide I am the shaman crone woman that you are going to carry around on a litter, and I will dispense wisdom in exchange for food because I'm old and overweight and out of shape, and all I know how to do is this.
We'll need that.
Okay, Banana Palace. I want you to know how it felt to hold it deep in the well of my eye. You, future person, star of one of my complicated dooms. This one's called Back to the Dark. Scene 1, death stampedes through the server cities. Somehow we all end up living in caves, foraging in civic ruin. Banana Palace. The last of my kind who can read breathes it hot into your doom-rhymed ear. She's a dowser of spine-broken books and loose paper. The rest of your famishing band thinks mad. Mine was the era of spending your time in town squares made out of air. You invented a face and moved it around, visited briefly with other faces. Thus we streamed down lit screens, sharing pictures of animals looking ridiculous, trading portals to shoes, love, songs, news, somebody's latest rabid cause, bosses, gluten, bacon, God. Information about information was the pollen we deposited, while in the real fields, bees starved. Into this noise sailed Banana Palace. It was a mothership of gold, shining out between "Happy B-Day, Katie" and a photo of someone's broken toe. Like luminous pillows cocked on a hinge, like a house with a heavy lid, a round house of platelets and honey. It was open, like a box that holds a ring. And inside, where the ring would be, I think about you a lot, future person. How you will need all the books that were ever read when the screens and wires go dumb. Whatever you haven't used for kindling or bedding. Whatever made it through the fuck cluster of bombs we launched accidentally. At the end of the era of feeling like no one was doing a thing about our complicated dooms. Helpless embraced, we sat in dark spaces, submerged in pools of projected images, trying to disappear into light. Light. There was so much light. It was hard to sleep. Anyway, Banana Palace. Even now when I say it, symbols shiver out in spheres. It starts to turn its yellow gears and opens like a clam, revealing a fetal curl on its temple floor, bagged and sleeping. A white cocoon under lit strings that stretch from floor to ceiling. A harp made of glass, incubating a covered pearl. We broke the world you're living in, future person. Maybe that was always our end, to break the jungles, to get at the sugar, leave behind a waste of cane. There came a time I couldn't look at trees without feeling elegiac, as if nature were already over, if you know what I mean. It was the most glorious thing I had ever seen. Cross-section of a banana under a microscope, the caption read. I hunched around my little screen, sharing a fruit no one could eat.
The book itself ends with a poet in a cave trying to conjure up a peach with poetry.
Yes. It's foolish. And it's a shout out to Proof Rock.
Oh, it's excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get, yeah, that works well.
There, Elliot's all in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so typical of your work. It's quite grim and quite funny at the same time.
I think it's my Jewish background. I like black humor. I mean, you know, this world is a veil of tears. It's hilarious.
It's been such a pleasure to talk to you about your
Pleasure
poem. I
to
think
talk
you're
to
just a
you, too.
fascinating writer. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.